After 2 weeks, finally Illari has been released in rank, but she's already been nerfed. This finalized nerf is actually one of many different patch notes that have been decided behind the scenes in contenders. Watch until the end of the video to find out all the details. Let's take a deep dive into how Illari got nerfed so fast. I'll be creating tons of advanced content for the GameLeap site starting this week. Use the link in the description to get a GameLeap membership with access to hundreds of guides you can't find anywhere else for all roles, DPS, tank, and support to help you climb and fiend for top 500 and beyond. Look out for those and enjoy the video. First off, this is the second support after Lifeweaver in a row that Blizzard's released. And Lifeweaver had a horrendous start. If Illari swam upon release, Lifeweaver sank like a stone. Just like how Brig had so many consecutive nerfs because she was too strong, Lifeweaver's had a lot of consecutive buffs because he started off too weak. Now, even though Illari's design looks pretty complicated, her utility is actually pretty low. Her primary fire is all about just dealing damage at range, and her secondary fire is simply just a massive burst heal. Nothing too crazy about it. Even her abilities aren't really that creative. Her shift is just a boop and a jump that allows her to escape people diving her, and her E is a turret that heals herself and her allies. Nothing crazy like Ana's anti-nade or Baptiste immortality field. But sometimes simple is a bit better. I mean, Cassidy just has a gun. That's about it. And he's a pretty beloved character, at least when he's not at 225 HP. But obviously, adding a long-range sniper to a support is a little bit dangerous, especially when it can headshot. Baptiste and Ana both have good range, but they're limited by their fire rate and their accuracy. And obviously, Ana can't headshot. But Illari's kind of like a mix between the two. Strong, solid, single target aim, but with the ability to headshot. Even though her overall DPS is a lot lower than even the worst damage heroes, it's still a bit much for a support. With how fast-paced Overwatch 2 has become, she kind of fits right in going for crazy skill shots and playing really fast, with a low time to kill. The finalized nerfs for Illari only affect her healing pylon and her ultimate. Her healing pylon works by shooting bullets of healing at a rate of 1.25 shots per second. Now that healing has been changed from 40 to 30, but if you keep your pylon up long enough, it should still be good. The shields have been slightly reduced as well, so that it's much easier to kill it when you do find it. As for the ultimate, it received the much needed quality of life update, and now the projectile impact and explosion can be blocked by barriers. It felt pretty bad as a Rhine to just block this sunbeam and it goes right through and hits your entire team. The projectile size has been decreased from 1.5 to 0.75 meters, but it's probably going to hit a lot of people if you fire it into a group of them. The sunset duration has also been decreased, which means you're more likely to survive if you're at the end of the duration. But these weren't actually the original nerfs. The original nerfs were a bit heftier. Not only was the heal amount of her pylon nerfed, but the healing rate was as well. So now, it healed less and less often. The old changes seem pretty big, but they were even bigger initially. The sunstruck duration was decreased even more than the 6 seconds that it is on the current patch today. And the slow that's applied to you when you're hit by the ability actually decayed faster. At this point, there's so many different patch notes nerfing Illari that haven't been put in the game yet. They're basically like lost media. We'll have to see if Illari is still too strong after this patch, in which case, the Blizzard devs will probably have to nerf her even more, but using the patch notes they've already prepared for contenders. And now, with all these different patch note changes, this is where the controversy comes in. In contenders, even though they played the initial part of the tournament on the previous patch, Illari came out between the group stage and the playoffs. So now, contenders had to decide, do they allow Illari to be played, or do the contenders players play on an old patch while the viewers are playing Illari in their own ranked games? In previous contender seasons, when a patch came out in the middle of the tournament, the players usually kept playing on the old patch. But now, coming up in Overwatch League as well, Illari is about to be enabled, and I guess Blizzard wanted to showcase her kit in contenders for a first test run. But it quickly became clear that she's way too strong. Now, contenders was actually informed that they would be playing with Illari. That's unfortunate for some of the teams because they wanted to play on the patch that they've been practicing for a long time. But regardless, it's always fun to play a new character and new comps. But because of the nerf that came in, Blizzard devs made a really strange decision. They made the players go for a vote to decide whether they would play Illari or not. Contenders has had a history of neglecting their players, and now it's finally really boiled over. Jay Carr revealed on Twitter all of the details about the situation. Basically, the devs made it a sort of default that Illari would be disabled now, even after making the decision to add her into the patch in the first place. The flip-flopping at this point from Blizzard was kind of unreal. It's a bit complicated, but to summarize, Blizzard devs wanted an almost unanimous vote. So if less than 7 out of 8 of the teams voted to enable Illari, she would be disabled. Basically, if only 2 of the teams decided they didn't want Illari, that would be it. She would be disabled. And all of the practice that the teams have been doing for the past week would have been wasted. It makes sense why a lot of people are outraged about this. It also meant that those teams that maybe didn't want to play Illari because they played comps that got countered by her could kind of decide to just mess with everyone and waste their time and then disable her at the very end. Luckily, even though Contenders is a bit of a mess, the competitive integrity is a big deal. People don't want to be seen as scumbags, especially by the entire community. Before this really dirty laundry got aired to the public, there was a lot of outrage in the Contenders Discord. Everyone was basically complaining about this. 2 teams having the power to completely switch things up, and on top of that, they weren't even being rushed to make the decision. In the end, the amount of outrage that J.Caro and other people in the Contenders community rose on Twitter means that they actually rolled back the decision in order to make a compromise between the teams that wanted to play Illari and the ones who didn't. The initial super nerfs to Illari were toned back a little bit, so she's still counterable, but also able to be played in her own special comps. But the patch that Contenders is playing on is still a little bit different for the one that was updated today. Despite all the drama, it's safe to say that the final outcome is pretty beneficial for most teams. In EU, Illari is definitely not a must pick. Tons of Brawl has been played, and some of the changes to Illari, especially the one meaning that her ult doesn't go through shields anymore, has allowed for some really good Ryan comps to be played, especially between teams like Team Peps and SR Peak Check, both of which are in the lower bracket semifinal right now. They'll be going Ryan to Ryan, man to man to decide who gets to the losers final and a chance at the grand finals. As for NA, people are more inclined to play more poke comps, but there's been a large variety in the comps being played. Even though Orisa is really strong, there's been a lot of different comps, Sigma and Diva helping out to make the poke comp with Illari have a little bit more variety to it. Now, Contenders has always had a reputation for being still pretty professional, but with some wacky comps. After all, there are still fair comps and even OTP comps being played in Contenders EU. Even recently, OTP comps have gotten success even in Korean Contenders. But now with Illari coming soon to Overwatch League, it's going to be real interesting to see what the top of the top has to say about the new character and the new comps that come with it. For those of us who watch the Overwatch League, we're used to seeing top players like Kevster on Tracer and Lip on Sombra. What's going to happen when we have to see them on Torb and Bastion? It's going to be a real crazy show, and I'm excited to see it. Thanks for watching. Just to clarify, Contenders has a big problem with leaking information from the private Discord. As the tier 2 scene of professional Overwatch, it deserves to be taken seriously. Although leaks are fun and interesting to report on, it undermines the integrity of the aspiring pro players. They want to be trusted with information, but if it keeps getting leaked, it's a lot harder to keep that flow going. For this video, all the information used was already leaked on Twitter and YouTube, with no primary sources directly from the Contenders Discord. This includes J.Caro's massive multi-paragraph tweet, which does show some other issues in Contenders that did deserve to be brought to light. Let us know in the comments below if you enjoy this type of content. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening in Contenders and Overwatch League, especially behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out on this channel for more content and guides to help you stay ahead of the curve with upcoming heroes, maps, game modes, and comps that you can download and exploit for massive success in the rank.